Greetings Acolytes, and welcome back to the channel. Often, we like to talk about the ancient Sith Lords and their unprecedented powers within the Force. They performed many bewildering marvels and terrifying feats in the Force that many modern Force sensitives, Jedi and Sith alike, can only dream of. Many of these abilities have fallen into legend and myth, however, although we do know that some of these Force abilities were no mere smuggler's tale, and that many of these ancient Sith were indeed powerful and capable of a great many dark and horrendous deeds. But having said this, it is worth noting that some of them did have help. Using an amalgamation of Sith sorcery as well as alchemy, the ancients created a litany of cursed artifacts that they would wield or wear in order to augment their power and bring them closer to the dark side itself. These artifacts are often things we only read about in the books and tales of Star Wars lore, but do not often see in the modern renditions of the Sith Order. So why exactly is this? While there have been many accounts of Palpatine personally owning many artifacts that were imbued with dark side energies, it seems as though he was largely indifferent to these trinkets in comparison to the almost over-reliance that the ancient Sith seem to have against them. So why is this? Why did the ancient Sith value these artifacts and trinkets so much when the modern Sith seem to barely take note of them? Well, today we hope to explore this and find out the truth and answer the question on why these more modern Sith Lords fell out of the use and practice of Sith artifacts. To start, let's take a look at some of the most valued artifacts themselves and visit a few examples of these artifacts that many Sith of the Old Empire were so productive with, as well as highly protective of. The first 12 Dark Jedi who were the followers of Ajunta Pal were quite fond of these dark side artifacts, which they ultimately plundered from the tombs of the Sith purebloods, pure-blooded kings that had reigned before the Dark Jedi's arrival on Korriban and the Sith homeworld. These amulets and scrolls of power are what gave rise to the reinvention of Sith sorcery and alchemy as we now know it. One such person enamored with these objects was the Dark Jedi Sora Sin, who dedicated much of her time on Korriban exclusively to researching these Sith people, as well as the cursed artifacts that the ancestors wielded. Sin would study these artifacts intensely after looting them from the tombs of the old masters, and soon began to make her own for herself and for the Dark Jedi compatriots by her side. She regarded even the minor amulets of the ancient Sith as priceless possessions. Such amulets included the Sith Avatar, which translate any language spoken or written and attunes its wearer to the chattering of ancient ghosts. Sin attributes the relic for being the main conduit for the Dark Jedi to make contact with the Sith people and allow communication between the two groups. The Dark Jedi would fight each other over these various artifacts, believing again all of them to be priceless, such as one of the Dark Masters in Zozan seizing the yoke of seeming for himself. This Sith artifact projected an illusion to make their wearer appear as anyone or anything at the cost of it burning their skin while in use. Some of these artifacts were so powerful that it could make the user almost akin to a god, such as the Heart of Grosh. The Heart of Grosh was a fist-sized ruby that the dead King Grosh had placed within his own heart. When paired with the Helm of Grosh, the wielder can control the very forces of nature. What is clear about these artifacts is that they were created by these Sith purebloods that were so deeply ingrained in the dark side of the Force that it opened within themselves pathways to abilities and allowed them the construction of these various amulets and artifacts, a power that seems to be largely lost on the more modern Sith or even the Dark Jedi of this era. These appeared to be literal gifts from the dark side itself. However, despite the awe-inspiring nature of these powerful items, at some point in history, around the time of the Old Republic era, the use of these ancient Sith artifacts began to drastically decrease, as less and less Sith were seen in possession of them. We find one answer snug deep in the pages of the Darth Bane novel as to exactly why this is, and why the Sith stopped using these amulets and artifacts in general. In the novel, Darth Zana, Bane's apprentice, is looking over a collection of various dark side artifacts. The book says this, quote, "She could still feel faint remnants of dark side energy clinging to them, fading memories of the incredible power that they once contained." The key here lies in the wording of these very sentences, faint remnants of dark side energy, fading memories of incredible power. From just this, we have the answer we need. The power of these Sith artifacts diminish over time, likely thousands upon thousands of years. By the time many of these objects reach the light of day, the spirits and power of their masters have long since vanished from the galaxy, and after several hundred years, the power of the artifact will slowly fade until it is little more than a paperweight. Not too many Sith were sentimental. Many Dark Lords were not very sentimental and did not desire to keep these items out of pure novelty. The Sith valued practicality and results, as well as instantaneous power. Much like the people in their lives, if the object didn't contain useful knowledge or power at the time, then it was quickly discarded. Of course though, the next immediate question is why didn't the Sith simply make more? The answer is a shift in philosophy for the Sith. In the time of the Old Republic, the Sith completely became militarized beings, and men like Darth Malgus were much less enamored with arcane knowledge and more focused on applying their skills to warfare. It is also worth mentioning that in Bane's time, when the Brotherhood of Darkness was the dominant force in the Sith Order, Lord Khan's philosophy was that every Sith Lord was equal to one another, hence why they abandoned the title of Darth. Crafting an amulet or possessing dark side artifacts might possibly be perceived as a challenge to other Sith Lords who were essentially supposed to be equals, much like the Darth title, which was basically one saying that they were the pinnacle of the Sith, and thus inviting challenge. Creating a powerful dark side talisman might be constituted as one attempting to become greater than their Sith Lord brothers within the Brotherhood of Darkness. As for the Sith of the Banite era, this was a different story. When it came to Sith alchemy and Sith sorcery, the modern Sith preferred to dedicate their knowledge to the study of destroying the Jedi, but destroying them was something much bigger than a personal ability booster. These amulets were created in a time when the Sith warriors desired as much personal power as possible in order to dominate the battlefield on their own as well as their domain. Modern Sith Lords, though, had no use for such ends, as they were in hiding and not doing battle with the Jedi using their lightsabers. The battlefield was now entirely within the Force itself, the galaxy at large, and it was a battle of wills and intelligence. Therefore, the rule of two Sith in the Banite era saw little need to construct brand new talismans and Sith artifacts, as they viewed this as an ancient practice. When Palpatine rose to power, however, it seemed that he and Plagueis may have possessed and used a few darkside artifacts, but only ones whose power couldn't be discovered by the Jedi, so the manipulation had to be subtle and easily executed. However, this does mark an important event in Sith lore, as Plagueis and Palpatine did use these ancient artifacts. Plagueis was recorded as having some artifacts of his own, but not for power, merely for study. Darth Plagueis was far more interested in the science behind the Force rather than the mysticism, and as such, he merely possessed amulets and objects to experiment on them. He wanted to know that if you slightly shaved away and chipped away at a crystal of dark energy, would its power diminish? Would it grow weaker? These questions endlessly drove Plagueis' research, but it is unknown if he ever used one of them for his own personal gain. Sidious, on the other hand, hardly had any use for these artifacts within his own exploits, and when he rose to power as the Emperor, he had no use for them at all, as Sidious believed that he no longer had anyone left to challenge him in the wide galaxy. Despite this though, Sidious did inherit many Sith artifacts from Plagueis, and did retain some interest in them, if only for his own amusement, as he made it somewhat of a hobby out of collecting these darkside mementos, and even gave one to Darth Vader himself as a gift. This, of course, in canon, was the helmet of Darth Maul. Speaking of Vader, as for him, he had no interest in darkside treasures whatsoever unless they strictly aligned with his own goals. In fact, the helmet of Maul was nearly instantly forgotten about by Vader, until it came to life and the spirit of Maul possessed one of the architects working on Vader's own castle, as he then proceeded to offer Vader something he could not refuse. If you want to know more about this story in particular, I suggest watching our video on why no one who worked on Vader's castle survived. Darth Vader did actually use one specific other artifact on a regular basis though, and he in fact took it with him almost everywhere that he went. This artifact was in fact his meditation chamber aboard his Star Destroyer. In Sin's diary in the Book of the Sith, again one of the first ever Dark Jedi, she details several darkside artifacts and actually includes the meditation chamber within her notes, as this technically does qualify as a darkside artifact. Her passage on this said this: This space-going vessel is not an amulet that one can grasp nor wear. It is an amulet that encompasses its possessor. The arcane geometrics of this vessel's cabin can amplify the passenger's spells 1,000-fold in every single direction. You heard that correctly. Vader's meditation chamber in itself is a construction crafted by the dark side of the Force, and therefore is technically a Sith artifact. As noted, the chamber amplifies the passenger's power 1,000-fold whilst they are within it. This is likely why we saw Darth Vader able to force choke an Imperial officer despite them being aboard an entirely different starship. Well anyway friends, what did you think of today's video? If you were a Sith, do you think you would possess a dark side artifact of your own? And what are your thoughts on why they ultimately fell out of fashion for the Sith? Let us know your reasoning in the comments down below, and as always, may the Force be with you and have a great day.